Have you ever felt like the world is pulling away from you, leaving you alone in a space that feels silent, empty, or even abandoned? It is in these moments of solitude, when everything else fades into the background, that the divine begins its most sacred work within you. God isolates you for a reason, because there is a transformation waiting to unfold, a blessing waiting to be received, and a strength within you that is ready to be awakened. The experience of isolation often arrives unannounced, like a sudden storm that scatters familiar comforts and silences the noise of the world. For many, this solitude feels like a punishment or a cruel twist of fate. But in the deeper architecture of the soul, it is something profoundly sacred, a necessary passage. In this space of stillness and separation, we undergo what can be described as a symbolic death. It is not a physical death, but the quiet collapse of the persona, the self that we have constructed to meet the expectations of others, the social masks, the habitual roles. These pieces of us fall away, one by one, until what remains is the raw, unfiltered essence of who we truly are. This death of the old self is not a loss, but a clearing, a sacred disintegration. When God isolates you, it is not to harm or reject you, but to prepare you. Like the soil must be tilled before new seeds can be planted, the inner world must be disrupted to make space for growth. The people you used to lean on may disappear. The career or identity you found safety in may no longer feel stable. Even your beliefs may be stripped down to their core. This is because blessings of great magnitude cannot rest upon a shaky foundation. They require a soul that has undergone metamorphosis, that has been emptied out, so that it may be filled anew. In the symbolic death of isolation, there is a painful honesty. You come face to face with who you are without the world's applause or approval. The mirrors that once reflected your worth are gone. You are left with silence, and in that silence, the old patterns begin to die. The ego struggles, clawing for control, for something familiar. But the divine purpose behind this isolation does not waver. It is shaping you for something far greater than comfort. It is preparing you for awakening. To be isolated is to be summoned inward, and inward is where the soul speaks. Not in the language of words, but through intuition, symbols, dreams, and deep emotional truths. The sacred isolation becomes the womb of transformation. In this womb, you are not who you were, and not yet who you are becoming. It is a liminal space, often misunderstood, where divine alchemy occurs. The past is burned off, the future is gestating. You are neither here nor there, but it is precisely in this place of nothingness that everything begins. This symbolic death is not without pain. In fact, it often brings the deepest form of suffering, because it is not just external loss, but internal unraveling. You may question your value, your purpose, your identity, and yet, through the ashes of this questioning, a new truth emerges. You begin to realize that you are never meant to be defined by the world's standards, that the love, peace, and strength you once sought from outside are born from within. The blessing of isolation is that it strips you down to your truth, your essence, your divine core. The moment you stop resisting this death, when you surrender to the silence, to the solitude, to the seeming emptiness, is the moment you begin to truly live. For from the death of illusion rises the birth of authenticity. From the fall of the false self rises the soul's purpose. Isolation, then, becomes the sacred space between the end and the beginning. It is the necessary darkness before the dawn, the quiet valley before the mountain peak. And it is only after this symbolic death that the soul becomes ready to receive the amazing blessings God has already written in the invisible ink of destiny. In the depths of isolation, when all familiar comforts have been stripped away and the noise of the outside world fades into silence, a new encounter begins, one that is not with people or circumstances, but with the hidden self that resides in the shadows of your psyche. This shadow is not evil, though it may appear frightening. It is composed of all the parts of yourself that have been repressed, rejected, or ignored. It contains not only your fears and insecurities, but also your untapped potential and authentic emotions. In the presence of others, we often hide this shadow behind a mask, seeking approval, acceptance, and safety. But when God leads us into isolation, it is often to bring us face to face with this neglected part of ourselves. No transformation can happen without first meeting the truth that lives within us, especially the truth we try hardest to avoid. The journey inward is not glamorous. There are no crowds applauding your progress, no achievements to display. Instead, there are long nights of self-confrontation, tears that have no obvious cause, and waves of emotion that rise without warning. This is because the shadow carries the energy of all that you have left unresolved. Childhood wounds, shame, jealousy, anger, guilt, and even hidden desires. They surface when you are alone, because there is finally enough stillness for them to be heard. In the company of others, you can distract yourself from these feelings, but in isolation, there is nowhere to run. You are forced to sit with them, to listen, to feel, to acknowledge. This is not punishment, this is divine healing in its rawest form. God allows this process not to torment you, but to prepare you. The shadow must be brought into the light before blessings can be safely received. Imagine being given something beautiful and powerful, love, success, influence, while still carrying unhealed wounds and unresolved anger. That blessing would either be corrupted or lost. It is in isolation that you are made strong enough to carry the light without being blinded by it. By facing your shadow, you gain wisdom. You begin to understand the source of your reactions, your patterns, your fears. You see yourself not through the lens of self-judgment, but through the lens of compassion. You realize that even your flaws have meaning. Even your darkest moments were part of your shaping. This inner confrontation refines you. It humbles you. It opens your heart. In this solitude, you begin to understand others better because you have now seen the terrain of your own soul. You know what it feels like to be lost, to be angry, to be scared. And from this place of understanding, you are better prepared to serve, to lead, to love. The shadow, once integrated, no longer controls you from the darkness. It becomes a part of your wholeness. It becomes a source of strength rather than shame. God does not isolate you to make you feel abandoned. He isolates you so you can discover the power that lives inside you, power that is unlocked only when you are no longer afraid to see all of who you are. To confront the shadow is to reclaim yourself. It is to stand in front of the mirror, stripped of all pretenses, and say, "This is me." It is a sacred act of courage. It is the passage through which all lasting transformation must go. For only the one who has met themselves in the dark can truly walk in the light without fear, pride, or illusion. When everything begins to fall away, relationships, routines, roles you've grown attached to, it can feel like God has turned his back on you. But this sense of separation is not divine neglect. It is a deliberate and deeply loving redirection. In the realm of spiritual transformation, separation serves as a tool for alignment. God removes the noise, the distractions, and sometimes even the people we've come to depend on, not to harm us, but to bring us back into harmony with his plan for our life. Isolation becomes the environment where clarity is cultivated and where spiritual alignment can take root. Life, as we experience it outwardly, is often filled with competing voices and unending motion. We make decisions influenced by pressure, by expectation, by habit. We may chase dreams that are not ours, maintain friendships that quietly deplete us, or cling to versions of ourselves that were shaped by survival, not truth. When God isolates you, He removes the scaffolding. Suddenly, the external support disappears, and you're left standing in the raw light of truth. It is in this space, painful and disorienting as it may be, that a higher alignment begins. He is not punishing you, He is purifying your path. Alignment requires stillness, and stillness is only possible when you are separated from the constant tug of the world. In isolation, you're no longer able to hide behind busy schedules or shallow distractions. You are alone with your thoughts, your soul, your Creator. There is a reason why the most transformative spiritual moments in history, from prophets to sages to poets, have occurred in solitude. The wilderness, the mountain, the desert. These are not symbols of abandonment, but of divine meeting places. These are where alignment with truth, with purpose, and with divine timing is forged. When God removes people from your life, it is not always because they were wrong for you in the most obvious sense. Sometimes they were part of an old season, and their presence could prevent the emergence of the new one. At other times, their voices may have drowned out your own intuition, or maybe they represented a version of you that no longer fits who you are becoming. In each case, the separation creates space, not just physical, but spiritual. In that space, you begin to hear more clearly. You start to discern what is real, what is necessary, what is divine. This kind of divine separation also invites reevaluation. You begin to ask yourself questions that were once easy to avoid. What do I truly believe in? What have I been pursuing and why? Am I following a path of ego or one of spirit? These questions are not small, they are existential in nature. They are the beginnings of realignment, not only with God, but with your highest self. And in answering them, you shift, you realign. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You become more attuned to the gentle promptings of the Spirit and less concerned with the loud, fleeting judgments of society. There is a sacredness to this kind of isolation that cannot be replicated in the company of many. God leads you away from the crowd so you can hear the whisper. He draws you out from the noise so your soul can breathe again. You are not being abandoned. You are being invited to listen, to wait, to trust. Alignment always precedes elevation. And before He blesses you with what your heart desires, He aligns you with what your soul truly needs. When the external world becomes quiet, when the routine dissolves and familiar faces drift into distance, something else begins to stir, something ancient, powerful, and deeply personal. In the silence of isolation, the inner voice, often buried beneath layers of distraction and expectation, starts to emerge. This voice is not loud or demanding. It is subtle, intuitive, and often speaks in symbols, emotions, and dreams. In isolation, what seems like emptiness is actually the most fertile ground for divine revelation. It is here, away from the crowd, that inner vision is unlocked and awakened. For so long, the external world has told you who you are. Friends, family, culture, media, each has painted a version of you that you may have tried to live up to. But those identities are often fragments shaped by necessity or fear rather than truth. In solitude, you are given the rare opportunity to peel away those layers and hear what your soul has been whispering all along. This whisper carries vision of who you truly are, of who you are becoming, and of what your purpose on this earth is. It does not arrive like a flash of lightning, but like a gradual sunrise. Piece by piece, it illuminates the unseen. The inner voice becomes clearer in isolation because the noise that once drowned it out is no longer dominant. When you are surrounded by noise, you respond to life reactively. You are in a constant state of managing input, others' opinions, deadlines, obligations, superficial conversations. But when God isolates you, He removes you from the reactionary mode and brings you into a state of listening, not listening to others, but listening to the deepest parts of yourself, your conscience, your spirit, your wounds, and your hopes. Each voice has something to reveal, and in that dialogue, vision is born. Vision is not merely an idea of the future. It is a spiritual seeing, a knowing. It is the recognition of what is already etched into the divine blueprint of your life, waiting to be discovered. It shows you not only what to do, but who to become in order to receive it. This vision rarely comes when we are crowded, overstimulated, or preoccupied. It comes when we are still, when we are quiet, when we are alone. In fact, that isolation becomes the sacred ground upon which divine ideas descend. It is the desert where prophets receive revelation, the cave where transformation occurs, the midnight hour when the soul meets the eternal. Unlocking inner vision is not always a comfortable process. It may challenge your current way of thinking. It may call you to leave behind relationships, habits, and identities that no longer serve your true path. It may show you painful truths. But these revelations are not there to destroy you. They are there to guide you toward alignment. Vision reveals what is possible, but it also reveals what must be healed. You begin to see not only the mountaintop, but the valley you must cross to get there. This insight can only be entrusted to those who have embraced solitude, who have listened long enough to differentiate between fear and intuition, between ego and spirit. In this sacred quiet, God does not yell, He whispers. And only the one who has learned to silence the outer world can hear that whisper and recognize it as truth. The inner voice is the compass, the vision is the map, but neither can be accessed when the soul is crowded. In divine isolation, you learn the art of hearing, of discerning, of seeing. You are not going backward, you are being positioned inward, where the true journey begins. What feels like a pause is actually preparation. What looks like stillness is the unfolding of sacred clarity. And it is that clarity that becomes the foundation upon which God will build the amazing blessings meant for your life. The blessings we often pray for, whether they are love, success, influence, peace, or purpose, are not light things. They carry a weight. That weight is not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional, spiritual, and even moral sense. To receive a great blessing is to be entrusted with responsibility, with energy, with power that has the potential to either uplift or destroy. And so, before God grants these kinds of blessings, He allows, sometimes even orchestrates, a season of isolation. It is in that isolation that a person's capacity is built. Without it, the blessing could crush rather than elevate. Maturity is not born in moments of applause, but in the silence where the soul must wrestle, reflect, and grow. In the absence of distraction and comfort, the real work begins. This work is invisible to others. It is internal. It happens when no one is watching and when there is nothing to prove. It is here, in the stillness of solitude, that strength is forged. Not the kind of strength that looks impressive from the outside, but the kind of strength that allows you to carry pain without bitterness, to carry success without pride, to carry responsibility without losing yourself. Isolation is where the soul becomes strong enough to hold the weight of what's coming. Because the truth is, blessings aren't just handed over. They must be carried, they must be managed, they must be respected, and that requires a version of you that is built, not in ease, but in preparation. Consider how many people receive things they are not ready for, wealth that leads to ruin, influence that leads to arrogance, love that is sabotaged by unhealed wounds. This is not because the blessings themselves are harmful, but because the vessel receiving them was not yet strong or deep enough to sustain them. The process of isolation is like a spiritual training ground. It teaches discipline, not just of action, but of thought and emotion. It builds resilience and clarity. It teaches discernment. It teaches silence. It teaches when to act and when to wait. It teaches you how to be anchored so that when the blessing arrives, you are not shaken. Maturity cannot be faked in solitude. It is exposed. When you are alone, your coping mechanisms fall away. You cannot distract yourself with people, performance, or praise. You are left with your patterns, your wounds, your voice. And through the fire of that raw honesty, refinement happens. What is no longer needed burns away. What is true is revealed. God does not isolate you to break you. He isolates you to stretch you, to expand you from the inside out, because the blessing you are praying for is already formed. It is waiting, but it cannot enter a space that is too small, too chaotic, or too fragile to hold it. In that quiet place, you begin to learn what matters. You become less reactive, more patient, more grounded. You learn to listen deeply, not just to God, but to your own soul. You learn to hold space for your emotions, to observe your thoughts, to confront your fears, and in doing so you grow, your spiritual muscles develop, your emotional capacity expands, your character is shaped. By the time the blessing arrives, it no longer feels like a surprise, it feels like a match. Because you didn't just wait for it, you became the person capable of honoring it. This becoming happens not in crowds, but in solitude, not through ease, but through inner transformation. What God is preparing you for is greater than what you've lost, and that preparation, though hidden, is the most essential part of your story. There is a quiet beauty in the stillness before transformation. It is a stage of life where things feel uncertain, where nothing seems to be moving, and yet, underneath the surface, a radical change is taking place. This period of isolation, though often uncomfortable and filled with doubt, is not one of stagnation, but of profound inner transformation. It is akin to the process a caterpillar undergoes when it retreats into the cocoon, seemingly vanishing from sight, only to emerge as a completely new form. This analogy serves as a powerful metaphor for the journey that takes place in the solitude before the blessings manifest. The cocoon becomes a space of profound change, where the caterpillar breaks down entirely in order to emerge as something far greater. In a similar way, isolation often feels like a time of dissolution, a breaking down of everything that once defined you. The version of yourself that you once knew is slowly but surely unmade. It is a painful process because, much like the caterpillar, you are no longer in control of the form you are taking. You feel vulnerable, stripped of your past identity, unsure of what will emerge. But what you may not realize is that this breaking down is necessary for the emergence of your true self. In isolation, your old patterns, behaviors, and thoughts dissolve as you are reshaped from the inside out. It is a process of deconstruction, one that clears away the debris of your former life so that you can be rebuilt with a new sense of purpose and strength. This cocoon period is not meant to punish you or isolate you indefinitely. Instead, it is the sacred space where your soul can grow, unfold, and become stronger. Much like the caterpillar's metamorphosis, the process is hidden from the outside world, and it is in this hidden space that the most essential changes occur. The solitude forces you to confront your fears, your weaknesses, and your doubts. The quiet is not empty. It is filled with the whispers of your true self, urging you to evolve. You are not becoming someone else, but rather you are shedding layers of old selves that no longer serve your purpose. You are aligning more deeply with the person you were always meant to be. Emerging from this cocoon, like the butterfly breaking free from its shell, is an act of rebirth. This transformation does not come without its trials. The process of breaking free is a struggle, a fight against the old self, a fight against the darkness that has been cleared away, and a fight against the limitations that once held you captive. But as you emerge from this cocoon, you are lighter, more agile, and more equipped to fly. You now possess the strength, vision, and clarity needed to carry the blessing that is coming. You have transformed not in spite of the isolation, but because of it. In the same way, isolation is the crucible in which your character is forged. It is the time when your deepest fears and greatest strengths come to the surface, and you are given the opportunity to confront them head-on. The cocoon is where your wings are built, your resolve is strengthened, and your capacity to carry what is coming is developed. The emergence from this period is marked by a deeper sense of knowing, not just about the world, but about your place in it. You become more aware of your purpose, of your calling, and of the strength that resides within you. It is important to remember that the butterfly's emergence from the cocoon is not instantaneous. It takes time. The transformation cannot be rushed. It happens in its own divine timing, and the same is true for your own evolution. The cocoon does not force the butterfly to emerge prematurely. It waits until the moment is right. In the same way, God does not force you into a new season until you have fully transformed and are ready to bear the weight of the blessings that await you. You may not always understand why the isolation is necessary or how long it will last, but trust in the process. Like the caterpillar, you are undergoing a transformation that is preparing you for something far greater than you could ever have imagined. And when you emerge, you will do so with wings strong enough to carry you to the heights you were always meant to reach. In the stillness of isolation, the most profound work of your life is being carried out, though it may feel like nothing is happening. It is in this sacred solitude that your soul is being reshaped, your spirit strengthened, and your vision clarified. God isolates you not to abandon you, but to prepare you for the blessings that are too great to be received by a version of you that is unprepared. The transformation you undergo in this season of quiet is not a punishment, but a divine preparation to hold what is coming. It is a process of becoming the person you were always meant to be, one who can carry the weight of blessings without being crushed by them. So when the time comes, when the isolation ends and the blessings flow, you will be ready, not only to receive, but to thrive, to rise and to soar to heights you could never have imagined. God's hand has been guiding you through this process all along, and when you emerge, you will do so stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the purpose He has set before you.